Here we are on Dursey Island, and we're a week away from the cable car being closed down for at least 6 months. Any ideas how you're going to be coming and going to the island for your cattle?
Well, Richie, I'm going to have to come by any means possible, really. I mean, we still have a few days left. We still have almost a week left. So I'm hoping Cork County Council and Heather Humphreys and her department will come to some sort of amicable agreement, agree on funding, and agree on a ferry and a boat that will take us back and forth to Dursey Island safely when the weather is fit.
Well, I suppose if they're not going to put a boat there or do something for it, or else get the insurance to get the cable car underway again for the next couple of months. She brought in a ton of sand 3 weeks ago, and she went in and out with a ton of sand. So I can't see what's wrong with the towers at all. Anyway, I know they want to be renewing, but outside of that, it's blackguarding to be closed here, because she's as good notice from January to the 31st of March. It should be from here till next June. I can't see why she's closing down the top for. When she bought a ton of sand in and out, there was nothing whatsoever wrong with her.
It's a huge loss for the local farmers, first and foremost. It's an absolute necessity for them to be on Dursey Island and to have an access to Dursey Island, particularly now this time of the year until maybe the 1st of June, where they have sheep lambing and cows calving. It's just something that needs to be there at this present time.
I think the effects will be devastating in a nutshell. Primarily for the people, obviously, the residents who live on the island, and also for the farmers that have their animals on the island and that access it from the mainland. It's unbelievable to think that such a thing could happen in this day and age, that a community could be cut off without any resources being put in place.
It has to be replaced. Yeah, but the towers are rotten, and I think there should be a replacement for the island people to go across, because you have a Jimmy Harrington as an old man and feeble like myself. A lot of them pension age, and they don't expect him to swim across. And secondly, the pier is not insured for tourists. And how is it that they expect the islanders to go on that pier then?
The cable car closing down, of course, will affect older people on the island who have absolutely no chance of actually running their own boat if that's the way it worked out.
No, Richie, no, they have no hope of running their own boats whatsoever. I mean, it's going to be a legal minefield for a start off if we do run our own boats. The reason being, we don't have passenger licenses here. Nobody here on this island has a boat with a passenger licence. So if anything did go wrong, it would be a legal minefield. I mean, one of the older gentlemen that does live on this island, you can't expect a man over 80 years of age to be coming and going in and out of a boat by himself, to be carrying his tanks of gas, his weekly shop, or whatever. It's just not fair. It's not on. It's not on.
Common sense, like, there's people over there can't use the boat. In fairness now, like.
Yeah, like Jimmy.
Yeah. And, you know, there's 7 holiday homes there. And how are them people going to go over there, you know, for 6 months? They can't go over and stay there. They're working people, they may come for a month's holidays. And they're bringing so much into small shops here.
It's one thing to say that they should use their own boats, and it's fine if you come from Garnish and you're a young man and you can come from Garnish with your boat and tight at the pier in Dursey. But if you're an elderly gentleman such as Jimmy, you have to launch a boat and go all the way around to Garnish, 2.5, nearly 3 miles away, and alone to go all the way around up through Dursey Sound, which in itself is a treacherous patch of water, and go all the way around to Garnish, and then try and find a place to put the boat. It's one thing, you see, to put it over against the pier on the island, but then you have to get a punt to bring it back to the mainland. It's a huge task and very risky for a man operating there by himself. I think it's very dangerous, to be honest.
The Dursey Island tour was the jewel in the crown of the tours that Beara offers, and obviously she's already getting bookings for this year, and she actually can't take them. That is not a way to run a business. there is no other means of access to the island put in place, so it's just a dreadful, dreadful situation. It's incredible to think that it has come to this without some form of access to the island being put in place.
I have no boat for the last 8 or 9 years. Because from once the health and safety came into it, I done the job myself way back. It started 25 or 6 years ago when the cable was cut. I done it from the month of September until the 7th of December, all on my own the most of the time. Between Garnish and Dursey and the pier outside. There was a derrick in the pier outside that time. I used to be able to take it up, but now there's nothing there. We're farther back now than we were over 50 years ago.
Yeah, okay. So what are you going to do with your cattle that are on the island now?
My cattle are in the mainland so far, but I have sheep here now, and they're all due to lamb in a week's time.
So you're in a predicament.
Everybody here is in the same boat as me. Everybody have animals, and we're depending on it. That's our living.
They should have a replacement for the islanders to go across, because in the 70s, I was there when the second tower was built, and they had a replacement. They had a boat there for the term that the cable car was out of order, and they had a ferry in the Sound, and to keep the catching of bear trawlers not going through the Sound.
So, you know, you've got 14 or something cows on the island. How are you going to handle looking after them?
Well, I'm not sure, Richie. I'm going to try my best. And that's all I can do. Try my best to do my best. Try and get here as many days as possible. I have plenty feeding. My cattle have plenty ground to work on. But it's just getting in here is going to be the problem. And
Yeah.
maybe even a worse scenario, Richie, being stuck inside here. What happens then? Nobody has thought of that scenario. What happens if someone gets stuck in here? Or if our neighbours get stuck inside here for a week or 10 days? There's nobody going to have much more than a week's worth of shopping in any household. What happens then? I really would love to know.
David, here we are at your house, just looking across the bay. We can see the Dursey Island and one of the Skellig Michael. Oh, we can see both of the Skelligs actually.
Yep.
Tell me about your father and when he was in the post office.
My dad was the postman for Dursey Island, and long before the cable car he used to row across the Sound, and he used to get an allowance for an oarsman, and his postal contract said weather permitting. So if you're a postman on the mainland, you delivered a post, rain or hail, but if the weather wasn't fit to cross the Sound, he could stay at home and still get paid, I presume. But so his contract was weather permitting, and he had his bicycle in his boat. He rowed across the Sound with an oarsman. The oarsman stayed in the shore, and he cycled west around the island delivering the post. And when he bought the first outboard engine, a Seagull engine, he had the extra allowance for the oarsman for himself, so a bit extra money for himself. And he was still the postman when the cable car started first, so it was a big change, but he still went in with his bicycle.
And what about, though, by the time they've finished fixing the original cable car, they might start thinking about building the one they've got planning permission for to build the new cable car?
Maybe so, Richie, maybe, but to be honest, it's going to be very hard to see it. Why would they build and propose to build an entirely new structure, replace the pylons that are there, and then come along in 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then rip it back down again? To me, it doesn't quite make sense. It's not going to happen in the short term anyway if the new cable car system that they're talking about, the double cable cars, does go ahead, and the visitor centre. It's not going to happen inside the next 5 to 10 years. It's not going to happen. I don't think. Maybe that's just my view, maybe that's just my opinion, but look, it's hard to justify it in the short term anyway.
Yes, this seems to be another issue now, that if they build a modified structure now at the moment with a better or a higher capacity than what's currently there, like, will the willpower be there to go back and follow through on the first plan, which is to build the visitor centre and the shop and the toilets and all the rest? Or will they just leave the cable car, the single unit that's there at the moment? This is another issue, you see.
I don't know about that. They got planning for the new one here a couple of months ago back, and I heard nothing about it since. They were supposed to have planning got, and where is it since?
Well, at the moment, the planning conditions has a cap of 5,000 on it, 5,000 a month. And in July and August, they're already doing the figures, but there's huge queues and big wait. You could be up to 3 hours, 2.5 hours waiting on either side, and it's just very limited capacity. I suppose it was never designed to shift that many people. It was originally put there as a mode of transport for the island residents, and it kind of accidentally turned into a tourist attraction. But it has fantastic potential. I mean, the island is beautiful.
The planning permission that's currently granted is to have the same capacity as what's there now at the moment, which is roughly 5,000 people per month. There is no extra capacity. It was originally in the plan, but that plan was modified to 5,000 people maximum per month during the summer months.
I consider the local people here who've been here for centuries as the indigenous people to here. And I mean, people are afraid we'll spoil it and it'll be overrun. We'd never let that happen. We're the custodians of the landscape here and always have been. And the reason the place is so beautiful is because we keep it that way.
Yeah, so from an ecological point of view, the difference to the island with the new cable car will actually be zero compared to what was already there. It was just the service would be improved.
It'll be a more pleasurable experience.
Born and bred in this place, love this place to the core, which is why I'm still living here, obviously. And of course, we would be very sensitive to the ecological needs of the area. But I do think that was taken into account for. I mean, I think primarily, you know, yes, of course, we have to preserve the natural beauty and the ecology of our area. Of course we do, it goes without saying. But I think people have to realise that you also have to preserve your community. Because a place without people is not a community.
You see, as I understand it, Richie, the likes of the Beara Way walks are monitored all the time by the National Parks and Wildlife Service. And in the whole process of the planning, they didn't raise a red flag to say there was an ecological issue. Nor were the farmers who were entrusted as custodians of the land, nor was the local ornithologist Derek on Dursey Island, was his opinion brought into consideration as well. It seems now that the people that have the concerns are not local at all.
Back in the 60s, were you involved in the building of the...
I was. When part was building it.
And what was your job in the building?
My job in the buildings was giving the steel to the Englishmen that built it. And all the steel was numbered from top to bottom.
Okay.
And that, excuse me, that was ordinary iron. It wasn't galvanized, and it only lasted about 7 or 8 years.
That's a long time. When the cable car was put here the first day, it started the middle of May, and it was all handwork. There wasn't even a mixer there. It was all turned by hand, and the whole that was done from the middle of May. I'd say she must be running sometime in October that year, in '69.
They bored the holes with a jackhammer, right? In other words, a kango hammer. Yeah. And they put steel into them, and they put bolts down that, you see?
Yeah.
4 bolts for every piling. No, 4 bolts for, that was 12
For each pylon.
yeah.
And we had to go in Arctic Kilmacone and fill the lorry with shovels of gravel, and it was drawn with bags by boat into Dursey and drawn up east drawn up east past the way to horse and cars to drive up to where it is now.
And were you involved in building?
I was there. Myself and Eddie Sheen were the only two that brought the concrete down to the lower steels inside in Dursey. There was no other one there to do it. The rest of them were too old, which I am today myself.
Yeah.
Now, Richard, if you look around that, like 6 months to build that cable car is a bit Irish.
Yes.
You know, every bit of that comes, I was there in both pilings, and every bit of that came is all matched. They're numbered from top to bottom. And if they had a machine there and bringing the angle iron up, sure, God almighty, the ESP they'd build it through them we'll give them 6 weeks and that'd be the outside of it.
The big thing for me is if it's sustainable employment locally, that has to be a good thing. Even with the construction going on, if it's not local, it's still lovely to see work going on and see life in the place and see hard hats and breakfast rolls and whatever else. And then when it's up and running, I mean, they have a fine visitor centre in the Mizzen, they have it in the Blasket Centre in Kerry, and you see people behind the counter or waiting on tables or selling tickets or operating the cable car, whatever it is. If it's summer jobs for college students, it has to be a good thing. Of course, you have to preserve the ecology of the island, but it's very easy to have no-go zones for and have designated watering routes.
The harsh reality of it is that in little places like Alahis, this parish that we live in, tourism is an integral part of life here.
Well, I give my version of it. I think if they made the cable car that's there bigger size and used the same structure with the hauling rope and the 2 track ropes, they'd have a safer job. They put 2 cable cars there. One of them is finished in September. What are they going to do? Hire up for a small amount of people?
Yeah.
It don't make sense to me. I don't know, but
sustainable employment is a huge problem in areas like this. We're so remote. I think they say we're the furthest mainland parish in Ireland from the capital, and we're not asking for handouts. We're not asking for benefits to stay at home and do nothing. We look after the landscape, but give us employment opportunities and we'll work it and we'll earn our own money. We'll provide our own food, water and shelter and rear our kids as we've always done. And there's no way we'd allow the landscape to be wrecked. But we desperately need sustainable employment, and tourism is the way forward. The place is beautiful, and it's beautiful for a reason. It's because we keep it that way.
Look, the Dursey cable car was put there in 1969. Obviously, as a link between the mainland and Dursey Island, it was there also to extend the longevity of dwellings on the island. It was meant to introduce a sort of agri-tourism business onto Dursey Island, and leave people live there for a lot longer. But
the cable car has become an icon in terms of the Wild Atlantic Way, and we just have got to look after our tourism industry. We've got to look after our people, because we have got to look at this in the long term.
Could you see yourself in the future moving and living on Dursey Island?
I wouldn't rule anything out, Richie. I mean, if we had a cable car service that ran from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening, I mean, I have to come and go to work in Castletownbere. My wife is a primary school teacher in Castletownbere as well. I mean, if the service was good enough and covered a good bit of the day, yeah, I could see myself living here. We both could, but the logistics at the moment don't work for us. It would be fantastic. You see other islands. I mean, you see Cape Clear, you see Valentia, fine populations of people, relatively easy to access in their own way. I mean, people are able to live there full time, and it works. They make it work. The people that are living there want it to work. So I mean, we're only a stone's throw across the Dursey Sound here. If something good could be put forward and put together, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't live here and commute locally to and from work.
Well, I wish you luck with that, Joe.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you very much.